What is going on, everybody? I'm Jay Emanuel, and this is a new Right to Real Love live show. Today, I'm joined not only by my very lovely co-host Tatiana, but we got my man Daniel joining us on the panel. What's up, Daniel?
What's up? How y'all doing?
Doing amazing,
Fabulous.
man. Excited to have you on here, man. We're gonna get into some good topics
Thank
tonight.
you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Truly
Welcome,
an honor, bro.
welcome.
Truly an honor. Tatiana, how you been since last week?
I've been getting better. I haven't had COVID, thankfully, guys, but thank you all for praying.
Yes.
Yeah, getting ready for Christmas break, winter break from work, all that fun stuff. How about you, Jay?
Oh man, my week has been good. The weekend was definitely restful because last week was a busy one, and definitely been looking forward to tonight's discussion because had the
Yes.
opportunity to actually connect with Daniel last week, and already knew this show about to be on fire. Like he's
Yes,
about
let's
to bring it
go.
tonight, so I'm definitely excited to
I'm
have him
ready.
on here with us today, man. And I gotta say, huge shout out to Asia for connecting us with Daniel.
Thank you,
Definitely want to give her
Asia.
huge shout outs. But man, Daniel, we're excited to have you on the podcast today. And before we get into our first topic of the day, I always like to just start off with some good news. And once again, man, today's show has been sponsored by my girl Portia. Like literally, like soon as I got off the show last week, I checked the email, and what do you know? She totally had sponsored another show. So huge
Yay.
shout out to
Thank you,
Portia.
Portia.
We definitely appreciate it. If you guys ever want to support or sponsor a show, by all means, you can see the little ticker below. The Cash App is there. Let us know. You'll get a shout out, all of that good stuff. But before we get into the topic, we want to go into today's icebreaker. So,
Mhm.
Tatiana, kind of walk us and welcome us into this little icebreaker for today.
Well, thank you, Jay. As you all know, we see a number of things that come up in the culture, and this is maybe familiar to a lot of us. We
Mhm.
want to know what you all think. Before we explain what it is, we're just going to show you the picture, and then you let us know in the comments or the chat, like, what is this? Like,
What
what
is this?
is it?
What is this? Definitely, definitely let us know what is this on the screen right here,
Amazing.
man. Definitely get in the chat. Let us know y'all thoughts, man. And Tatiana, I'll be honest, when you sent this over to me via email, I was like, oh man, look at it. Tatiana, you always come up with like the best icebreakers. And I'm like, okay, we've had the questions, the this or that. We've had the emails sent in from other real lovers and viewers.
Hmm.
And today you were like, yo, I just got this image, based on the topic that we're
Yes,
going to be diving into. I think this image will walk us right into what we're going to get into.
that's
And
right.
Right
my
into
man
it.
Daniel's response says it all.
Right into it.
We
Go
should
ahead.
let our
So,
guest give us a response as to what they think the shirt is.
yes. What does
Daniel,
this mean to you, Daniel?
what are your initial thoughts when you see the shirt?
My initial thoughts is, them big throne chairs that they be having at the baby showers.
Yo, not the throne chairs.
It's true.
Woman got
It's
on,
true.
woman got on a fur little maternity dress with the big bump, and then the dude just sitting there like he don't want to be there.
Oh,
Fine.
that is too
Oh
funny.
man, yo,
Cynthia
Cynthia know
chimed
what it
in.
is. She like baby shower. That's
Baby
right.
shower.
All day, all day. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hey, Cynthia.
Oh man,
Yeah, she
yes,
got
yes. You did say it
it.
perfect.
Oh man, yeah, this is like the unofficial official uniform for fathers
I
at
need to
baby
say
showers.
it.
Oh
It's
man, the unofficial uniform. Yo, what's your take on this, Tatiana? Like when you saw the topic that we're diving into tonight, and this popped into your mind, or what came to you?
okay. First of all, hey
What's up,
Tanisha.
Tanisha?
I had no idea that Burberry shirts were a thing. Like it just kept popping up. And honestly, I would see them in baby shower pictures too, like on Twitter, or if I would see like people I knew that had baby showers, I'm like, huh, it's always the Burberry shirt.
Right.
Okay. And then I literally just Googled Burberry shirt baby shower meme. And it's a whole thing. It's a whole culture in itself, like dedicated to this whole aesthetic. And I'm like, okay, I mean, guys want to dress nice for their baby showers too, as
Right.
they should. They should get to celebrate the new life that's coming into the world. And it also reminded me of our topic because I saw a post or a quote by someone before that said that they want to see more weddings than they want to see baby showers. And it kind of goes into this thing where we kind of celebrate in our culture outside of the church and inside the church. Hello. That people are having babies before getting married. And so it's like, does that mean like, is marriage dead to our generation? Is it dead to our culture? Are we just more interested in having the look of being a couple without the legal responsibilities of marriage? That's all the questions that came to mind. So that's what I thought.
Oh, nah. It sounds like you're going to definitely have something to add to tonight's conversation. And I'm looking forward to it. And, it's funny how the culture is. Oh, what's up, Danielle? She's in the building tonight.
Hey,
What's up? Welcome. I know Danielle probably got a few things to say about this Burberry shirt tonight. Yo, look at this. Tanisha said, shots fired, Tatiana. It's the truth, though.
I'm just a messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger. Never shoot the messenger. Please, please. No, man, like this shirt right here, I think it's definitely speaks to our culture. And you want to be styled out, but then also it becomes a thing once every other dude shows up to the baby shower with that shirt on. And it's just like, okay, we have a trend here. It's definitely a trend that's taken off.
Luckily, I wore a white turtleneck. I ain't wearing a Burberry shirt.
Oh, see?
Okay.
Look, I'm sure you was like, it ain't going to be you, huh?
No.
Not going to be him. Yo, big shout out to Portia, today's show
Portia.
sponsor in the building. Always a blessing to have you joining us. Thank you so much. Yo, definitely let us know in the chat what y'all think of the Burberry shirt for the baby shower. We definitely want to get y'all thoughts on it for sure. But, kind of leading into tonight's topic with regards to having children outside of wedlock, primarily from the perspective of Christians. Oh, hold on. We got some more people in the chat before I go there. What's up, JD Clay?
Hey,
so
JD.
Glad to have you join us on the show tonight. Tiffany is in the building. What's up, Tiffany? She says, hey, Jay, Tatiana, and Daniel. Also, hello to the chat mates. Looking forward to another great show of fun and knowledge.
Hey,
yes, we definitely got that on deck for tonight for sure, man. Yo, we love the chat love, man. Y'all already showing up. Love it. Yes, indeed. Oh, hold on. Let's see what Tanisha said. I have not seen the Burberry shirt trend. Oh, she ain't seen it.
It's a thing, Tanisha. Yeah.
So let's ask this question. Is it based on locale or is this just like Black culture thing?
I think it's more of a Black culture thing.
I would say Black culture thing.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah, that's interesting. Yo.
Just like I've seen in other baby shower trends in our culture. I just saw this like last weekend. It said, if it's a good baby shower if they add grape jelly to the meatballs. I was like, what? Like, like there's always has to be meatballs at the baby shower. I don't know if that represents the baby bump. I don't know if that's just classic baby shower food, but there's always grape jelly added to it to make it do what it's supposed to do.
Wow, like that's new to me. That's new to me. I've never heard that.
I've never heard that.
Yo, I don't think I would even want to walk nowhere near grape jelly and meatballs. Like that's a weird concoction.
Mind blown.
So look, y'all. Danielle says she ain't seen it either, but it can be retired.
I hear you, Danielle. Y'all heard of the artist Big Sean, the rapper? He's from Detroit. So shout out to Detroit. Yes. He had in one of his music videos a baby shower scene, and the guy had a Burberry shirt on. So I'm not lying when I say what I say.
You like, yo, it is what it is, and I ain't changing it. Okay, so look right here. So Cynthia says, never heard of the grape jelly thing. Neither have I. Like that's totally new. JD's like, I don't get it. Hold on. Oh no, JD, it said it's good. So you've had it? Oh, definitely let us know if you've had it. I've never had it. That would be interesting. I've never had that at all, man. I didn't even know that was a thing.
That messed with the consistency, like that.
Right, like I don't know, like jelly and meat though. Is that a thing?
I think it's just the flavor. It's it just adds a little subtle sweetness to it after you cook it. So I never made it like that, but I know people who have, and it's not that bad. It's like it's almost like a sweet, tangy glaze on it. Yeah.
Yeah, JD says that she's had it. So, yo, we got one person in the chat that's had it. So, yo, we learning tonight. We definitely learning some things tonight, man. But I appreciate you for bringing that up. I think it's a really good way to kind of break the ice on tonight's show and the goodness that we're going to be diving into. So, with that being said, y'all, we can transition into our first topic of the night. Let me go ahead and put this up so nope, not that one, this one. All right, here we go. Nope. Okay, there we go. Got it now. So Tanisha says, I've heard a coworker say that she put grape jelly in her meatballs, but I have never cooked them like that before. Yeah, that's different. Tiffany even like, you mean grape jelly and meatballs? Danielle says, I asked my mom, she said grape jelly and meatballs at baby showers is a hood thing.
Yes.
That's very what up. I mean, I think that one may be like a low-cal thing. I've never had that. I've never even heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like Daniel, what did y'all have at the baby shower?
So we did a little twist. We had tacos.
Ooh, tacos is always a good idea.
Right.
We had a taco bar where you made your own tacos. It was hard shell, soft shell, different cheeses, lettuce.
Yes, Lord.
Oh
I'm
man,
hungry
yo,
now.
that's a whole vibe right there, Daniel.
Yeah.
That is a whole vibe, man.
I
Yes,
love it.
yes. So let's kick things off, man. We are diving into this topic tonight because Daniel, you actually presented it. You were like, yo, man, I'm coming on the show. And you already told us off camera, but letting the viewers know, you're like, yo, I'm open, I'm transparent, I'm open to talk about my experience, what I've been through, so that it can benefit and help other people. So I was like, yo, I'm game for it. I think we all can agree that Christians have children outside of wedlock. I mean, I know a lot, like, and I'm gonna just be real. I know a lot. It's not something that's rare. And I think that it's important for us to have the conversation because what really stood out to me, Daniel, is the fact that you asked the question of when you presented that topic, what next? And I think that that's rarely the question that's ignored, which is, okay, it happened. What now? Like, how do you deal with everything that's going to come after the fact? So I really just want to pass it over to you and just ask you to share your story with us, man. Like, how did it go?
Okay. So background, I've been saved since I was 8 years old. I'm a PK. I know there's the stereotypical PKs. Actually,
PK in the building.
So, ironically, I was the complete opposite of that. I mean, I was the leader of our youth group. I was far from the stereotypical act like this at church, but act like this later. My parents allowed me to develop my own relationship with God. It was never forced. It wasn't be at home at 8 p.m. My sister didn't have to not wear pants, things that we kind of do with tradition a little bit. But pants as in the skirt, some, just have that. So with that being said, I went to college and my mom would like to call it Sodom and Gomorrah.
What?
so you pause for a second. So where did you go?
So I went to I'm in Kansas City, Missouri. So I went to University of Central Missouri.
Okay.
So I met a girl. Her name, I'll keep her name, not her. Yep.
Respect.
Yeah. So I met her, and she's a Christian as well. So I don't want it wasn't an unequally yoked situation. It wasn't like, where it's like, oh, she fine and I don't care what God have to say about it. We actually had our own moments where we sacrificed what we felt like was happening to God. We had guardrails. I mean, it was like, you can't be at my house past this certain time. You cannot spend the night. You can't sit on the bed. And what truly happened was it was a slow drift. I mean, like with anything, I think one time she was studying so hard, she was like, I'm gonna pull an all-nighter and study. And I'm like, well, if you pull an all-nighter, you could just stay here. And then from there, it was a slow drift. And as time went on, things just started to become easier. And it didn't happen right away. We were together 3 years before we found out we were having children.
Wow.
And so those 3 years was a lot of lukewarm Christianity, whereas, we both grew up in families of faith where we would put on a facade and be like, hey, we Christian, we are carrying ourselves in a certain way, while also behind closed doors, not doing it the right way.
Got you.
So when we found out, not only did we find out that she was pregnant, we found out we were having twins.
Whoa.
So we have twin identical
Wow.
twins. I love them to death.
Yes.
Um, they are truly, I say this all the time, they're truly the epitome to me,
Mhm.
God's grace.
Mm,
That you can do something that is not necessarily within the confines of when you're supposed to do it,
mhm.
not the right thing to do. But I truly deem that the result of it, the child is not a sin. It's not the result of sin.
Right.
I perceive that as grace.
Mhm.
Um, so I know I truly took it hard.
Mm,
I actually had, I didn't even know men could get this, but I had postpartum depression myself.
wow.
I felt like I let my family down. As you know, being a PK, I felt like I let my dad down. My parents didn't take it well at first, obviously, but they turned around and were so supportive. But
Mhm.
truly, the most, I would say, traumatizing thing was the acceptance at church.
Mm,
Obviously, it's not something that is not something we were supposed to be doing in the first place. But I've always believed that, I mean, Romans 8:1 says there's no condemnation in Jesus Christ. So, with that premise being said, if we're supposed to be a hospital for the sick, why are we turning away or making sick people feel like they're not in the right place? Um, so, that goes to the question of what's next. After that, I really went down a bad time. I
mm.
backslid like I was in that skiing down the Alps. um, and my dad gave me this perfect scripture, and if it's anybody walking through this right now, this will bless you. Um, there, after before Jesus died, he went to Peter and he said, "Peter, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat."
Mm, yeah.
And basically, what that means is Satan has asked, I deem you as valuable. I mean, because a couple
Mhm.
books earlier, he said, upon this rock, I will build my church. And he was talking about Peter.
Right.
Peter means rock. And he said, Satan acts as if you like wheat. And through that, Peter was like, nah, God, I mean, Jesus, anything that I do for you, I got you. I'm 10 toes down. I'm cutting off people's ear in the Garden of Gethsemane. Uh, I mean, historically, I've read so many different commentaries that said Peter was cursing people out. Granted, that's not what we should be doing. Check out Colossians 3. But you know, he was 10 toes down for Jesus. Um, and he denied Jesus 3 times. And this is the part that will bless somebody.
Mhm.
John 21 says that Peter and the other disciples, after Jesus died, they were like lost. They didn't know what to do. I mean, what can you do when your life was one way and Jesus came and rocked your life? You can't be the same. That's how it is today. And Jesus came to them and he spoke to Peter and he says, "Do you love me?" He asked him 3 times, "Do you love me?" He said,
Mhm.
"Feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep." And
Right.
from that point on, that was Jesus saying, "I forgive you. Go out and do what we do. Go out and do what I called you to do." So if it's anybody walking through this right now, there's no condemnation in Jesus Christ. You made a mistake, but Jesus still wants you. No matter what you think, how the mistake went, no matter how somebody else makes you feel, what's next is truly surrendering and saying, God, okay, I made a mistake. Let me lay this at your feet. And that's
That's real.
yeah.
Yo,
So good.
Daniel, first and foremost, man, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing your experience with
you.
us. And man, there's so much there. And I want to invite the chat, you guys, definitely, if you have any questions, feel free, drop them in there so that we can address them. I want to point out a comment by Portia. She said, make sick people feel like they are in the wrong place. Wow, that was so deep. Really puts things in perspective. And man, there was a lot of deep things that you said, man. And Cynthia is also saying, thank you, Daniel, for sharing your story, your experience, man. We really appreciate it over here. And this is the first thing that I want to kind of walk people through this process, right? Because as you alluded to in your story, you know, we start in place A and then B often isn't the place that we intended to be, right?
Absolutely.
And let's start at that first point, which is your upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Is it fair to say that with your upbringing, you were brought up to, not engage in premarital sex, and that, or let me just leave it there based on your response, your facial expression.
So, it's my parents had the same response that most Christian parents have. Just don't do
Okay.
it.
Okay, I was
All
gonna
right.
follow up. I was gonna have a follow-up question. Like, did they ever explain to you what sex was and what the purpose of it was
No,
growing
and
up?
we talked about that a lot after the fact. That we
Okay.
never really had that discourse about everything that I learned about sex was from school.
Mm.
Wait. What age would you say, or grade level? Because I always thought this was important for people to understand, because young people are learning about it way
Yeah.
more early than we think they know.
I would say middle school, but
Hmm.
nowadays I wouldn't be surprised if it's hitting elementary schools. Uh,
Right.
so I would urge parents, if you do have children that completely understand um, anything, if you just have, even if it's not the birds and the bees talk, if you just talk about the honey right now, talk about something, because your kids are learning
Mhm.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Right. It's true.
Yeah. And I think it's a little bit scarier today because of the fact that the majority of children either have a phone or an iPad
Yeah.
in their
Hmm.
possession,
Yeah.
primarily throughout their entire day. And that's something that we didn't have, speaking of myself and my peers growing up, and we still stumbled into stuff.
Yeah.
And if we could stumble into stuff back then when we didn't have access to it at our beck and call, I mean, just think about it today. And we know that there exists parental controls, but the question becomes, like, how many parents really have parental controls on their children's devices, right? Like,
Absolutely.
who really goes that extra step of blocking it? Who actually goes that extra step of monitoring what their children are doing? And this is
Hmm.
the thing, you can track this stuff, but the question becomes, are parents actually doing that? And I mean, by no means, I'm not trying to throw shade at parents, but just speaking to the point that you guys made,
Yeah.
is that the sooner parents can realize that your kids are getting introduced to this stuff a lot sooner nowadays,
Hot
man,
sooner.
it'll definitely go a long way.
Yeah.
So we had some messages in the chat. Let me shout these out really quick. So Portia also says she appreciates your transparency and your backstory, Daniel. And then JD says, "Yup, definitely agreeing with some of the things that have been said." Also have Tanisha. She says the church I grew up in used to make people apologize in front of the entire church when they get pregnant
Whoa.
out of wedlock. I don't agree with this method.
Whoa. That's
Wow, we're gonna talk
shame.
about that in a minute. But first, I gotta give a huge shout out to
Whoa.
Sir Hell Speaks. Thank you for joining us on the stream
Hello.
tonight. Definitely
Thank
hope that you
you.
enjoyed the discussion for sure. And definitely, y'all, get the likes up if you're in here and you're enjoying it. We appreciate that. Thank you, Sir Hell, for bringing that up. But now let's get back to Tanisha's question, because this is a good one, man. What
Yeah.
do you guys think about this? What's your take, Daniel?
Actually, I want to hear Tatiana go first.
Okay, yeah, Tatiana, what's your take?
Thank you guys. I heard about this before, but I didn't know anyone personally who went
Mm,
through that experience where they had to apologize for getting pregnant.
right.
But it's weird. It's like this weird space, because as Daniel mentioned in his account, in his testimony, that he saw the children as grace, not a punishment. I
Yeah.
mean,
Right.
if the Bible says that children are a gift from God, why are we apologizing for them? I
Absolutely.
think that's where it gets a little uncomfortable, or where it gets a little like, is that godly? Like, you know what I'm saying? At
Right.
some point we have to really put into place, like, what is religion and what is relationship?
Yeah.
And when people do have a moment where they have a more obvious sin than others, where it's like premarital sex that leads to a baby, we can't be like, oh, they did the ultimate sin. I'm like, everybody sins, guys. Everybody has something that they're
Right.
dealing with.
Yeah.
And just because it's not as out there as others doesn't mean like they need to. If that's the case, everybody needs to apologize for something that they did.
Right. Yo,
Yeah.
it'll be a long line every Sunday coming up to the front if we just confessing our sins before the panel.
Yeah, it's like it's creating this ungodly hierarchy of sin that God did not set up. There are set sins that He does definitely say that are worse than others, but pregnancy is not one of them.
Yeah.
So let's that's what came to mind first when I saw that. So I'll let you guys go.
That's right.
So, oh, go ahead.
One moment, Daniel. Before we get into it, you mind if I just shout out? I just want to shout out some comments, man, because we got some more people wanting to thank you. Tiffany wanted to thank you again for sharing, Daniel. Yo, they really appreciated it. Cynthia says, "Wow, Tanisha, that's wrong. That must have created so much church hurt,
For
and that's what
real.
I was thinking. That definitely is a root of church hurt." Tanisha says, "My mom did not give me an official talk about sex. When I was in the 5th grade, kids were bringing sexual position books to school. I think that is too young to be having sex. It definitely is."
Child.
Yeah.
And then Danielle says, Tanisha,
Good.
in response to Tanisha, I've seen it too. And half of them were dropping it low and wide in their youth with oops and break babies
Not break
inside
babies
marriage
though.
and out. So the hypocrisy is real.
That's the
Danielle coming through
word.
as she always does. So
There's a
we
lot to
got a
cover.
question here from Tanisha. Before we get into that, Daniel, definitely want to hear your take on
Yes.
Tanisha's original comment.
Um, First of all, that's never been okay. Um, it's something that I believe is kind of rooted in tradition, and that's one thing that I will touch on. I'm sure we'll get to it later, but one of the things that was kind of brought to me not by my parents, but just naturally in the church. That's the first next step is, well, 2 + 2 = 4. Now that you have a child, you have to get married.
Oh yeah, we're gonna dive into that, Daniel.
But
We gonna dive into that, Daniel,
Whoa.
for sure.
we're not gonna do that. Just a little bookmark so we can get into that later. But
Yes.
the reason I asked Tatiana to go first is because the women's perspective in this is so important because they're the ones that are going to quote unquote wear the sin. They have to
Right,
carry the
right.
baby.
It's giving very much Scarlet Letter for
Yeah.
anyone who had to read that in school. Like, I think the main character was pregnant with the pastor's child or something, allegedly,
Wow.
and she was barred from society because she was the one who was showing the evidence of what happened.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into what Tiffany is saying here. She says when she was a young woman, she said when she was young, women would leave the church out of embarrassment and go attend another church until having the baby.
Interesting.
Oh, and look who's in the building, Daniel. Asia's here. She's like, "What up, D?"
Hey, Asia.
Yes, yo, thank you, Asia, for making the connection. We appreciate it. So, Sir Hale says, you will never get healing advice from people who have had to normalize trauma and never heal. Yo,
Tell the
that's real.
truth.
That goes back to that church hurt, man. It's so real. It's so real. Oh, man, you got another thank you, Daniel. Danielle says, meanwhile, bro man can still play on the drums while the pregnant woman got to be sat down.
That is a thing. That is a thing.
Yeah.
That's real. Sariel says, when it comes to sin, people have had to hide. Hold on, let me say this again. When it comes to sin, people who had to quote unquote hide teach others to do the same. Yeah. And there was a question that came to my mind when, let me go back to Tanisha's original comment. I'm curious, is it both the man and the woman that's being made to stand before the church, or is it just the woman? Because
That's a good question.
I feel like women catch a lot more of the shame, the grief, and people dragging them through the mud when this occurs, as opposed to the man does. And I'm curious to know what the chat thinks about that. And I feel like that's kind of what you were alluding to, Daniel, with regards to wanting to hear the woman's perspective.
Absolutely. Because like I said, the man can walk away and be like, dang, I did this wrong. But the woman actually has to wear the sin. And that's something along with the shame that you kind of have from doing things before or out of turn. You also have to wear that. Where's your wedding ring? Where's your wedding ring? Where is your family? Where is what's next for you?
Right.
And the first step should be, okay, you did this wrong. There's no condemnation in Jesus Christ. There's actually a scripture that in Micah 7:19 that says, the Lord will, once you repent, the Lord will throw your sins into the deepest seas, never to be seen again. And that was one of my favorite scriptures that I got from my father, actually. And I hope that blesses someone that, the whole process of becoming a Christian is to be more like Jesus. You don't start off being more like Jesus. Even Paul, who was Saul at first and was killing Christians, Jesus had him sit down for a year or two before he came out and spit out the whole New Testament. But it was because of sanctification. He had to become more like Jesus.
Yeah.
So you can't magically pop out and be like, oh, I'm more like Jesus just because you accepted Christ.
Right.
Yo, that's real. We got some comments over here. So Tiffany says the woman is the one that has to apologize and wear it like a scarlet letter, just like you were saying, Tanisha.
Mhm.
And then Tanisha says just the woman had to apologize. That confirms what we were saying.
That's
My
wild.
issue was they did not make the man get up in front of the church, just shaming the woman. And see, these are the type of things that have to stop because, as we know, sex
Mhm.
is an act that occurs between two people, especially
Yeah.
when pregnancy is involved. Like
Right.
you can't just say, "Oh, well, this Christian woman is the reason why she got pregnant." Nah, man, she couldn't have got pregnant without a seed. Like, like she didn't do this by herself. So making her wear that shame alone is just not right. It's not right. And JD says so true. Yeah. Tiffany also says she is seen as the only one at fault, like she tempted or seduced the man and got
That's a
right,
whole another level to that situation too,
right.
because it's like we want to put blame on the
Hmm.
woman, and that that can
Yeah,
go real far.
because
But yeah,
that was a question that I was going to ask Daniel, because it was one of the things that I took note of when you were mentioning how things happen.
Yeah.
Is what like how did people perceive the mother of your children, or were they like, oh man, like yo, did she kind of trap you, like, because they will say these type of things about women, like, oh man, yo, she did this to try to trap him, or yo, she this you hear, y'all know how
Yeah.
when they start speaking Christianese, like that
Yeah.
Jezebel, like
Yeah.
like she totally tempted him, that like. So when you look at the experience that the mother of your children went through, like, did she go through that, or was it more understanding with regard to the fact that both of you were involved?
She went under more understanding within our families,
Hmm.
but to the outside world, because she once again wore the sin per se and carrying
Hmm.
the child, she obviously probably got more flack. She was scared to go to church. Uh,
See,
I
yeah,
mean, we actually switched up churches during her pregnancy.
yeah, like
Uh,
what Tiffany was saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it and the crazy part, she grew up in that church. That was a church that her parents went to,
Hmm.
and also she grew up in from the time she was born. So the fact that you know her mom had to be like a sergeant at arms with
Wow.
how people talk to her was an
Hmm.
issue for me.
Right. Right. And I'm gonna just say this. I feel like one of the biggest forms of hypocrisy within the church, more specifically the Christian church,
Yeah.
is surrounding sex,
Yeah.
because they act like it's something that's not happening, but the majority of people in the church are doing it.
Yeah.
And people only want to shine that light when it's like, oh, look what happened to you. Like, no, like, quiet as kept, the majority of people in there are getting it in.
Yeah.
And I know that we live in a society now where people focus more on celibacy, purity, and the like. But let's be honest, y'all. Let's be honest. It's still rare, even in the church today. Like, the majority of people are not adapting that lifestyle. It may be something that they practice during seasons or periods of their life. But if you were to poll the majority of churches, I promise you, the majority of people would not say that, yes, I'm still a virgin, never had sex before.
Yeah.
I think you would probably even be shocked if you did a poll and asked how many people were sexually active within the last 12 months. I think it would shock
hmm
if people had to answer these questions honestly, because it kind of goes back to what Hale said. And let me see if I can find that comment. Where is it? The one where he was talking about hiding,
Yeah.
right? People doing this stuff and they're hiding their hand, but then they're the first one to throw a stone, right? Once again, that's what they talk about that in the Bible. Like, don't be the first one to cast the stone, because oftentimes that thing will come right back on you. And I just wanted to point that out. We did get a few other comments. Let me go ahead
yeah.
and shout them out. So Danielle says that part, Tiffany, she was a Jezebel because her ankles were showing. Right. Yeah. They go to the extremes. Portia says sometimes if the man is not convicted by the action, he will get another one pregnant and another one. Not everyone in the church gets the conviction that comes with having sex outside marriage.
That's real.
That's
Yep,
right.
that's real. Tiffany says that she was at a Pentecostal church. Danielle says Juanita Bynum just went viral for saying it's a toe cleavage and no stockings that is tempting men. No, we haven't seen the video. Please share that video. We're going to have to talk about that at some point. I
Toe
definitely, yeah.
cleavage?
Right. What in the world is toe?
I'm not a guy, so I don't know.
That sounds like a
And
lot
no
of discipline to
stockings?
me.
That's
I don't know what it is.
that sounds
Daniel,
like a
you
less
know what toe
issue.
cleavage is?
That sounds like a less issue. Like if you lusting over some toe
Yeah,
cleavage,
Right.
that's like a discipline.
you
You
need
got to hold it
deliverance.
accountable. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is my thing. Like at that point, I feel like any person that is to the degree of this comment, toe cleavage and no stockings is what they're trying to fight against. That person is at the brink. Like, because I think can we just be honest for a moment? I think people ignore the fact that having sex is a natural desire.
Right.
It's natural.
It's a God-given
And to be
desire.
oh no, say that again.
It's a
Tatiana.
God-given desire.
God given on top of that.
A fact.
God given
Yeah.
natural desire. And I understand the importance and the reason why we promote celibacy, abstinence, purity, however a person prefers to classify it. But we have to stop pretending that people are fighting against something that comes naturally to them. Like it is extremely difficult. It's and this is the thing, and I gotta say this, right?
That's a good
We
point.
know about the role of fasting in churches, right? Especially around the new year, like, you got a lot of people that's about to go on this fast, entering into the new year, and
Yes.
after the new year roll around. This is what's so interesting. Most people, they struggle to fast from food for a few days, but then they expect for Christian men and women to essentially fast from sex, which is just another natural God-given desire, and do that for years.
Yeah.
Like the odds are stacked against people that walk that road. That's not advocating for people doing it, but to me, I feel like what's the surprise or what's the shocker when you hear that somebody is having sex outside of marriage, or you hear that
Wow.
somebody got pregnant outside of marriage? Like that person they were doing what comes natural. And at some point, if you're around somebody that you're interested in, that you're attracted to, it's difficult. Like you said, Daniel, and we're going to get into it, which is that slow drift, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If you don't, this is the thing that I don't think people talk about. And after that, I'm going to go to the comments. But I just got to say this. People feel like you can be in a relationship with somebody, y'all both celibate, abstinent, y'all pure, whatever the case may be, and y'all just supposed to not be attracted to each other, not have sex with each other. And, like, if that is your life, if that is your experience, I gotta just say this: you're not really attracted to that person. Because I promise you, if you are truly attracted to a man, women, and men, if you really are attracted to a woman, you want to have sex with them. That doesn't mean that you will act on it, but you want
Thank
to.
you. Yeah.
You want to. If you don't, why are you in that relationship? You're not really into him. You're not really into him. It's natural. It's natural to have that level of attraction. But let me go to the comments because we got a lot. So Portia says, haven't seen. Okay, that was going back to the video. Okay, she said it's on Twitter. She's going to go get it. JD
Okay,
says the
thank
church
you.
needs to talk about sex, everything about it. Right.
Thank you,
But
JD. It's true.
we don't know if it'll happen. And that's why this platform exists. That's why we have to have these conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because at the very least, maybe there will be some Christians that are going through this that will stumble across this video and see some of the things that we're saying. Because you don't want to demonize people for acting on a natural desire. I get it from the spiritual perspective, but we have to recognize, just like we were talking about last week, it's a spiritualizing of dating in a sense.
Yeah.
You're spiritualizing it. Like you have to first look at things practically, logically, and in reality. And in reality, it's a God-given natural desire. And people are going to, quote unquote, stumble, fall, trip, however you want to describe it. So Tiffany says, Danielle, yes, that Jezebel and wearing ankle bracelets was synonymous with being a loose woman. And she was called out for wearing red lipstick.
Whoa.
Wow.
That definitely, you know what? Red lipstick in the church definitely has a stigma attached to it.
See?
Yeah.
Portia says, that is so true, Jay. A lot of people are getting it in after service and
Ooh.
just not showing. That's real.
Child.
That's real. Tanisha says, that's so sad. Your children's mother had to leave her church during her pregnancy down. Yeah, it is. It is. That shouldn't be the case. So much judgment. So much judgment. So Danielle says, strappy shoes is considered toe cleavage. Yo, that's crazy.
That's
Even Tiffany is like, yo, toe cleavage. What in the world is that? Oh, hold on. She said, don't grease up your legs with no pantyhose. Wow. Like, Juanita Wilding, y'all. Portia says, I struggle with fasting for a few hours sometimes, and I was raised in church. Help
Hello?
us, Lord. Put down that fork.
For real, yeah.
So, JD says, like Daniel said, that slow drip, right? And okay, they coming in so fast. Okay, Tanisha says, yes, ankle bracelets mean a woman was a Jezebel in church. They even used to look at her crazy when she wore red dresses or fishnet print tights.
Yeah, even fishnet tights. There was a
Yeah.
thing like maybe 10 years ago. And a lot of church people were wearing them too.
Okay. And
It
one
was
last one.
wild.
Danielle says, laughing her butt off at Portia. I think you are right though, Jay. If you are really into the person, you will be sexually attracted the way she's attracted to Oreo cheesecake. Yo, that's real. That's like it's real, man. It's real. And these are the things that aren't talked about. So let's talk about it, Daniel. That slow drip. What did that look like in your case?
So, like I said, we had guardrails.
Mhm.
We
We'll
thought,
talk about that. What were the guardrails first?
so the guardrails were no spending the night. You couldn't be at the house past a certain time. You couldn't be on the bed. You couldn't. We made sure that we prayed every night before we left each other. And then, like I said, it was just that one moment of, well, I'm studying. I'm pulling all nighter studying for this test, and it's like, okay, well, you only gonna sleep for 2 hours. You might as well stay here. And it didn't happen in that moment, but that slow drift came from that one moment where we broke the guardrails. And from there, it's like, well, you stay here, and it wasn't that bad. Maybe I could be
Mm,
still on the bed. Maybe
mhm.
I could be here past 8 o'clock,
Right.
and that's kind of where it is. And like you said, Jay, we in the church kind of demonize sin in a way that takes away humanity. I would say, because all all sin is falling short, and we're doing something that God doesn't approve. But one thing about sin is our flesh just looks for the quickest way to take care of our human needs. We have a human need to feel connected. We got a human need to eat. We got a human need to belong and to feel accepted. Or we even have a human need to feel happy and joyful. Sometimes when we not feel joyful, our flesh is like, I feel not joyful. Let me go drink. Let me go smoke. I need to feel accepted. Let me go have sex. Our flesh just sometimes gets away with things that we could go to God for, but we can't, as a church, demonize that. We have to accept that and say, and God, that's what true. There's a lack of discipleship in the church. We say,
Mhm.
congratulations, you're a Christian.
Right.
Go live the life, and here are all the rules that you have to abide by,
Mhm.
and you're a Christian.
That's
Right.
it.
Yep.
That's a
And this is what
huge that's a
no, go ahead,
huge
Tatiana.
foundation for the problem. A lot of it. Go
That's
ahead,
real.
Jay.
No, I was just gonna say, and oftentimes what is expected is perfection. But it's
Mm-hmm.
perfection with no discipleship, like you said. Like, how can you have it's like, yo, I want you to pass this class, but guess what? I
No
don't
books,
want you
no
to come to
notes.
any of the classes.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
you're enrolled, but don't come to any classes. I'm not gonna give you no classwork. I'm not gonna give you no study materials, but just come on these days, midterm and the final exam, and you better get A.
Yeah.
Like that's essentially what's expected of people.
That's wild.
Because
It's
I mean,
true.
can we be honest for a moment?
Let's be honest.
Most people don't even advocate people reading the Bible for themselves.
Ooh, Lord.
Most churches are just fine with, hey, you come in Sunday. Just make sure you're here Sunday. Like,
And you pay your tithes.
That's like, bring your tithes and attribute to our attendance.
right.
Lord.
So let me give a shout out because I see Ebony joined us tonight. What's
Hey,
up, Ebony?
Ebony.
Welcome. She says, I think having accountability when dating is key. Having a
Mm-hmm.
community of believers that would assist you is how you have a godly, pure relationship. That's real.
Yeah.
That's
That's
real.
key.
Yeah. And JD says, love that term, guardrails. Yes, yes, I love it. That's a good one, man. I might have to start using that one, Daniel. That's good. Always be using boundaries, man. Guardrails, that's dope. So Danielle says, Daniel, then do you agree with hurry up and get married so that you don't burn then? Because that was the old church way. And I don't know. Some people say that's the best method to not be tempted. So let's go there.
Okay,
Let's talk about
so
it. Great question, Danielle.
Oh, I've been waiting for this question. Okay. So it's actually a scripture. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Paul talks about this. He says, well, if you want to be single, be single. If you want to get married, get married. But he says, if you feel like there is temptation and you feel equipped to be married, hurry up and get married. But that does not mean if you feel like you are not ready to be married, you hurry up and get married because that's the quickest way to have a divorce. And we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that, like Ebony said, if you surround yourself and insulate yourself with accountability, celibacy is possible. If you surround yourself with Christian, other Christian relationships, marriages, friends, celibacy is possible, but it's truly intentional. When you stop being intentional, is when you start to drift. And
That's
I
good.
think we stopped being intentional. We were in college. Honestly, besides Asia, I think me and her was the only other two people that was really about living that life in college.
No,
So
that's
we
real.
didn't have nobody to be like, hey, check and see if I'm still at her house at 9. We didn't
Right.
have that.
Right. Yeah. What's your take, Tatiana?
Yeah, I definitely heard that before, and I agree with what Daniel was saying. Like, yeah, it's like you can't just get married just because you want to have sex. That is not a good reason to get
Nope.
married, and I wouldn't advise anyone to do that. If
Nope.
anything, you want to get down to the bottom of some things. Like, well, okay, we understand you get it, you want to do things, but why do you want to have sex? Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why people want to have sex. It's there's something to it. It's beyond the natural desire as well. It's the mindset, it's how you grew up, it's maybe how you think. It could be attached to your attachment style in relationships. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, a lot of people aren't aware of those needs and why they do the things that they do. There's a reason why some people wait. There's a reason why people don't. Figure that why out so that you know what you're getting yourself into, because sex is bigger than just the temporary feelings that you have for that person or with that person. I would want to get a little deeper in that. And that hopefully will get them in a sober mindset, because like if you start really thinking about why you want to do things that maybe not the best thing for you to do, that might stop you in your tracks for a second. It's more than like, oh, take a cold shower or something like that. Ask yourself why. Why do I want to do this? You know?
Right. Yeah. I think knowing why is really important. And going back to something that I was saying before is that when you're really attracted to the person that you're in a relationship with, I'm gonna make the assumption that we're talking about two people in a relationship, right? That desire to have sex is going to be there if you're truly attracted to them.
Mm-hmm.
I, like the two of you, do not believe that just because you have a strong desire to have sex that you should rush into a marriage. No. And I'm gonna go even further. I know I'm jumping the gun, but I think you guys may agree with me on this. I don't think that just because somebody has sex, they get pregnant, they have children, that you get married for that reason either. I
No.
be like we got to disconnect the whole what happens before marriage when it comes to sex is a path or a gateway into a marriage. Like, nah, I feel like that diminishes the importance of the role of marriage as well. And we have
Mm-hmm.
to face the consequences of our decisions. I think that's what we have to be willing to embrace. It's not the fact that, oh, we just rush into a marriage. And I mean, we're rushing from one impulsive decision to another. Like that's the way that I look at it. Is
That's
you're
huge.
still oh no, say that again, Tatiana.
I'm saying, yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. And it's like you don't want to be led by your emotions, especially when it comes to making
Mm-hmm.
real big life-changing decisions. It's
Right.
huge. I mean, like having children with somebody is a huge deal. A
Yes.
huge deal.
I don't
Getting
know.
married to somebody is a huge deal. But I think what often happens in our society is that it's so easy to have sex with someone that you kind of detach the difficulty of the things that come after that, which is the pregnancy, which is the marriage. And when you lose that disconnect, that's where people
Yeah.
make decisions without thinking, ahead. And that can be challenging. And I have to I keep having to bring this out. That's challenging when you really attracted to somebody. Like if
Absolutely.
y'all know what I'm saying in the chat, like when you are really sexually attracted to a person, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Oh yeah.
It's difficult. Like, I mean, I know people try to act like it's not, but I don't agree with that. My question is either to that person, are you one being disingenuous by saying that that's not what it actually is, or have you never been truly sexually attracted to another person to that degree?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just my thoughts, ladies and gentlemen.
Good stuff.
Ebony said, "Oh no, say that again, Tatiana."
I was saying it was good stuff, Jay.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. So Ebony says sex should be taught in a healthy manner in the church. It should.
Absolutely.
It should. But will it ever? Like that's the question.
Yeah.
Ebony says lack of accountability too along the way. Yeah, that's
Right.
important. Yeah, Tiffany was saying teach Daniel. Yes, he was definitely dropping some gems. Portia says you guys had pretty good guardrails. Yeah, y'all did. Y'all did. I mean, y'all did. Those are all, every guardrail that you name, bro. I have talked about it on the podcast. And that's the reason why I have to now, in tandem with, addressing that, mention like, yo, we can't ignore the sexual urges, the sexual attraction to the person that you're in a relationship with. And I will be the first one to admit that I used to address these topics from a spiritualized perspective, because I would only talk about know the boundaries, know the guardrails, and not address the sexual attraction piece of it. But as I'm starting, as an individual starting to grow, being able to look at things more objectively and not just have my rose-colored glasses on, I'm able to see like, yo, people aren't struggling with this just because they just want to, thumb their finger up at God and say, I don't want to do it your way. Like, no.
Right.
And for people who are doing it right and have never had sex, have never gotten pregnant, have never, done any of these things, I applaud those individuals.
Glory to God.
I applaud, because it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult to do, and that's real.
And I'll add this. I think sometimes as single or unmarried people that may even have a season where we are waiting or abstaining from sex, we make it seem like it's easier to do that until you actually get in a dating season or in a relationship. And that's where you get challenged, because it's all good and dandy when you by yourself.
Right.
Maybe you might have the temptation to do self-pleasure. That's a whole nother topic. But then when you get into a relationship, then it's like you with that person, you're in closed environments. There's all kind of things happening. And again, there's the natural too, because God is ingenious with how he created his creation, which is us, right?
Right.
We have hormones that respond to the opposite sex. Or to the person we're attracted to. And if so, you're smelling, there's things we don't even understand our body's responding to. It's like, how do I react? How do I respond as a person who's trying to do right by God and honor this person that I'm with in the relationship that we're building, so that we can have some element of self-control and be in tune with our humanity as well. It's like, yeah, that can be very challenging. I think people don't talk about that. Especially for those who are over 30. I'm 35 now, and I've been learning more about what it's like to be a woman in your 30s and how like hormones plays an impact in the desire that you have for sex. Isn't that it? And the church would say, oh, you got a spirit, you got a demon. Like, no. My body was set up to want kids. Right. So your body's going to tell you, body, like, you need to go get you a seed so you can have a baby. And I have no control over that other than you just picking someone, right? But that is nature, and that is what God set up in our bodies. So we had to be aware of that too when we go into these situations. Like, like, I need to like keep it real with myself. Like, it's all good by myself, but now that I'm in a relationship, am I going to be able to handle the temptation by myself, or do I need to get help? Do I need a mentor or accountability partner? Do I need to reach out to somebody? And unfortunately, I think that a lot of people in the dating space, in the single space, we feel like we can handle this on our own, and that's not the case. We definitely like need more people in this season.
Yeah, you like Ebony was saying, you need that community, you need that accountability, and another thing, I think that when it comes to men, people always are quick to talk about like the visual, and y'all right. But the one thing that people tend to forget is that with women, all of the senses get involved a lot more than with men. And let's be honest, if you're in a relationship with somebody or you're attracted to somebody, you want them to be attracted to you. So that means that person gonna look good when you see them. That means that person gonna smell good when you see them. The smell has got you going.
They
The
could
look
even be
has
in their
got you
body.
going. All of that has an impact on you, and it is just your body can't turn that off. Like you can't just be
No.
like, yo, ad blocker, like on the computer. Like I want to turn this part off. Like no, all of that clicks in, all
Yeah.
of it. So let's focus on the chat for a little bit. So Portia says you guys had pretty good guardrails. Sometimes it's hard to set those when both people are not on the same page or aren't serious about their walk with Christ. Yeah, it can be difficult. It can be difficult. JD says, right. Ebony says Apostle Paul spoke about burning to marry. Portia says, Danielle, I don't agree with hurry up and marry or burn because marriage is a serious commitment. You need to know the character and have a good foundation before jumping the gun. That's facts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's coming from a married woman.
Yes.
Ebony says, in a way, they are already married in the spirit.
Ooh.
Yeah, you know,
I've heard that. I've heard that too.
that's another topic. I'm
Yes, it
gonna skate
is.
that one from today. I'm gonna skate
Yes,
that
it
today.
is.
Tiffany says, it is sad when singles are encouraged to marry to cover their fleshly struggles.
Come on.
Okay. Portia says, temptation is always going to be there, but self-control, discipline is part of the fruits of the spirit. Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Self-control is key. Oh man, we got somebody new in the building. What's up, Tony? Appreciate you joining us. Says lack of self-control outside of marriage leads to lack of self-control inside of marriage. Never marry due to lack of self-control. That's real. That's real. And I think that speaks to the point of we have to address, going back to what you said earlier, Tatiana, that why, right? What led us down this road? Once you as an individual start to work on yourself, then you can kind of put it together. But once again, that whole natural piece is not going away. That's why you have to figure out how do you navigate it, knowing that those natural emotions, those natural attractions and desires, they're not going to go away. What are you going to do in those moments? How are you going to exercise the self-control and the discipline that you need? And I think one of the best ways to do that is community, like Ebony was saying. When you're surrounded by most people are not going to be like, yo, let's get it on right here with this group of people. So that's one way, a new guardrail to put up in the process as well. So Tiffany says marriage is a serious commitment and should be entered into with a goal of success. Right. And then, yep, Ebony was saying true, Tony. Danielle says, I agree, Portia. I think just getting married to mask sexual desire is problematic because it cheapens the true purpose of marriage. That's real. So then Ebony says Christians lack self-control and the world sees it. Yeah, I mean, but this is the thing. Like, it's not just a Christian thing, right? I think it gets put on Christian people more so because of the standard they hold themselves to. But let's be honest, everybody is dealing with the same thing. Like it's people in the world, it's people in other religions that go through the same struggle because this is a human struggle. Like I know we're addressing it tonight from a Christian perspective, but let's be real. This is a human experience that we're talking about. It's more shame. It's more, judgment of people when a person has the label of being a Christian or they are a part of certain religious affiliations. But let's not miss the mark and understand that this at its core is an issue that all human beings deal with. We all have to curb our sexual desires, learn how to navigate and manage them. We all have to do that. So I just wanted to point that out.
I think real quick before we move on, I think the difference is to my dad's point. Also, he brought up a great thing to me about he's been in marriage for 17 years. Devout, never looked anybody else's way, all that stuff. So I truly honor him and watch him do that. And that's my template for marriage. But to the point, one thing that he also says that he does is, he guards what he watches and listens to. That's important. Before you sin, you imagine it. So if you can perfect your imagination, not perfect it, but make sure that you're not putting things in that fuel your imagination going in the wrong trajectory, then you are now beginning self-discipline and you're beginning those things. Yes, we all lack self-discipline to a certain extent, but Jesus is the answer to it all. Jesus died so we can't just throw in a white flag and be like, it's okay, I know I'm struggling, and that's it. We have an answer to it.
Yeah, and we also remember like other scriptures that the Bible brings up, like about Jesus mentioning that God always provides a way of escape. Like we don't have to submit to our desires just because they're there. And as challenging as it is, again, God will provide a way for you to get out of that thing. Um, and and even when we do mess up, there is greater grace for us. But we also, there's that thin line of taking advantage of said grace and just like, constantly being putting yourself in a cycle of a habit or something where you keep doing the same thing. You just have to like keep repenting. Like it's definitely a personal situation at that point. You definitely like maybe you need help if you find yourself constantly in that cycle where you're like, oh, I feel bad about this, I feel guilt, and I go back into it. That's like the enemy also bringing that on you, keeping you further locked into that stronghold of that thing, which should be a good thing, but because it's out of God's context, it's turned into something that's not good.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you bring that up. And this is just kind of a little nugget just to kind of throw this in there without getting too deep. But I know that when we talk about sin, it's really a blanket term. But when you actually look in the Bible, and this is for a minute, I'm about to go on my Bible. I'm about to stand on my Bible study
Go ahead.
square for a second. So there's actually three words in the actual Hebrew, the original text of the Bible, that get translated in English as sin, and they are all very distinctly different. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's to the point of what you were just sharing, Tatiana, is that what people don't recognize is that we just call something sin, but the two things that are really at play are iniquity and transgression. The biggest difference
Mm.
between the two of those things are the intent of a person's heart. Transgression is when a person does what we would consider they fall and then they get back up and they try to, not do that again. They work on trying to not do it again, but they may fall again. But then they get up again and they try to work on it. That's what's considered a transgression, where you are missing the mark of what the standard according to the Bible is, but you are still actively trying to pursue a life where you are not falling as much or falling at all. Iniquity is when a person gets to a place where they essentially throw up their hands and they say, hey, I tried it and now I'm no longer going to try it again.
Yeah.
So when we just say that that person sinned, we do a disservice, because if we really understood the difference between sin, uh, transgression, and iniquity, we would be able to stop and say, well, let's dive into this deeper. Are y'all just iniquitous in the sense of the reason why y'all got pregnant is because y'all weren't even trying to uphold this standard? Y'all already was like, yo, we're Christian, but we're done with that. That's not something that we're holding ourselves to. That's where you can look at them and be like, okay, man, like they're kind of going astray. Maybe we need to really get into their life and speak into them to help them get back to a place where, at the very least, we can move them from iniquity to transgression, where they're actually pursuing, working on curbing that behavior, getting to a place where they're like, yo, I don't want to just throw up my hands and say, I'm done. That's it. And that's just who I am. Because at the end of the day, that's just a rationale. That's a rationale that people make. And ultimately, it's our will that we have to strengthen. Our will is going to do some different things if we allow it to when it comes to quote unquote sinning, which is, first, people are going to rationalize their behavior, right? They're just going to be like, yo, well, the reason why we did that is because this, that, and the third. The second step, if a person doesn't have the discipline within their will, is that they're going to actually fall victim to the pleasure. They're going to say, hey, well, it feels good. So I'm driven by, I do it because it feels good. And then that third instance is when people are like, okay, it's beyond just the fact that it feels good. It's a part of me. And that's where the iniquity comes.
Mm.
The person actually identifies with the fact that I'm a person that has sex without trying not to curb that behavior, not trying to curb it. So it's really important. And I just wanted to share that because understanding where a person is in their journey, especially spiritually, and when they made this quote unquote mistake, if we want to call it that, that's important. Instead of just saying, hey, they sinned. Well, that speaks nothing to the person. That speaks more so to the act. And I think we have to get back to understanding that we're people. We're people. We got to deal with the people, right?
Mhm.
Talk about Jesus
Mhm.
coming to save, God coming to redeem people and things of that nature. That's what he's coming to redeem, people. People. Like the behavior is going to be existent, but it's whether or not the people can get control of the behavior that they're engaging in. So just wanted to share that.
Good
So
stuff.
Tiffany, oh no, Danielle says it's only difficult, Jay, because you idolize how the sex is going to be in your imagination, going right back to what you said, Daniel. And then you do it and you get slapped with sobering hand of reality. Yeah,
Right.
like you said, I used to say this: you got to guard your gates, and it goes right back to what you were saying. Your father was saying you got to guard your gates, your eye gates and your ear gates for sure. But even your nose gates, your taste gates, your touch gates, all of those gates need to be guarded because, like I was saying before, all five senses are involved. All five senses can lead you down that road. They may not all
Mhm.
do it to the same degree, but yo, if you're like, yo, well, I don't look at anything, I don't hear anything, but you putting yourself in a position where you touching on things, right? That kind of goes back to that topic that you mentioned, Tatiana. We didn't self pleasure, like you touching on things, right? Like so, you got to be mindful of all of your gates, not just ears, not just eyes, but even your nose. Like be mindful. Like you sitting behind that woman that wear that scent, or you sitting behind or next to that man in the pews that wear that scent that you know you like that. You need to change your seat. You need to change your seat. You
Right.
may not be looking at him lustfully, but you taking in all you taking in you loved it. You love the way he smelled though. Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. That so you got to be
Yeah.
mindful of all of those senses. So
Hmm.
Portia says sexual attraction is real when you want that person. I agree. It
Hello.
is. It is. Cynthia says, right, Jay. The rush to marriage after having kids or because of lust makes people think sex is the most important thing about marriage. Right.
Ooh, come on, Cynthia.
Danielle says, bruh, got sleep apnea and sleeps with a CPAP and needs the magic pill. And suddenly, you change your mind. So let the church say, God, keep my imagination. Amen.
That's specific.
That's
Right. Right.
yo.
Like, yo, like Danielle, like, I'm gonna let that one. I'm gonna let that one stay right there. I'm not asking no more questions about that. Tiffany says the passion that draws two people together is why some women and men that often are not in alignment with other things on her check. Hold on, let's see. Hold on, let me run this back. The passion that draws two people together is why some women, men that often are not in alignment with. Are y'all getting what she's saying?
I
I'm
think
not.
I get what she's saying. I think it's supposed to be a comma after women.
Yeah, like
Okay.
some women's men that are not often. Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. Like, can you drop
Because
that one again,
she said
Tiffany? I'm.
her, because it said her checklist. I'm like, some
Yeah.
woman. So a woman's man is not often in alignment with other things on her
I think what
checklist.
she's trying to say is sometimes we have that polarity of passion that you tend to throw everything else out the window. You
Mm,
know,
Yeah.
go all up
right.
in the moment, like, ooh, you look good, feel good, and you do the act, and then something comes of it, and now you realize that, that's why you have so much baby mama, baby father drama, is because
Ooh.
you have people that never really had chemistry in the first place.
Right.
And
Wow.
now you have people who didn't really like each other, uh who had sexual relations and now have to deal with God save us from the sin, but not the consequences.
My
Mm,
God.
wow. Wow. Yo, that's heavy. Yo, I appreciate you for breaking that down, bro. Definitely.
Hmm.
Asia says a lot of people are abstaining not because they don't want to, but because of the lack of opportunity. That's real. That's what I used to talk about with being fake celibate. Is where I used to be like, yeah, I'm celibate, but I was just waiting for the opportunity. Once the opportunity presented itself, oh, I guess I'm not celibate no more. So
That's
yeah, that's
what
real.
that's what
The
some
lack,
people call involuntary celibate. Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. The lack of opportunity keeps a lot of people celibate, but it's masked as I'm waiting. That's real. JD says yes. Danielle says, preach. The hormones are real after 30. Yes, that goes back to what you were saying, Tatiana. Tanisha says, true, Tatiana. When you are single, it is easy to be abstinent. It's a challenge when you are in a relationship. That's real. JD says, yes, putting it in the right perspective. More love for you, Tatiana. That's it. T says, Ebony. Asia says, one thing I do find helpful is controlling our appetites. Self discipline in one area can assist in being disciplined in another. If I can control
Definitely.
one appetite, it assists in controlling another. Yeah. And I
Hmm.
think going back to what we were talking about before, just mentioned it at a moment, when you're able to fast from food, that's great, right?
Yeah.
Because that assists you in being able to fast and abstain in other areas of your life. Like, I totally agree with what Asia is saying is when you're able to build up that discipline across the board in your life, it definitely rubs off in those other areas where it may not be as strong.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Ebony says feeding the spirit is crucial. Yes, it is. Watch what you listen to and watch what you watch. Guard the gates. That's right. Tiffany says powerful, must guard our ear and our eye gates. Truth, Daniel. Yes, more love for Daniel. Tony says that's good, Daniel. Ebony says I really appreciate Billie English coming out about her experience with pornography at a young age. Amen.
Yo.
T and Daniel.
Yo, that came out not too long ago. She was on the Howard Stern show. She was talking about how she was exposed to pornography. She was watching it at the young age of 11.
Wow.
And it warped her mindset. So when she started becoming sexually active, she was thinking that all these behaviors that she saw in pornography was what she was supposed to do, and it
Mm,
wasn't. She had to unlearn a lot of that stuff. She
right.
also said that she had night terrors. She had all these awful dreams
Mm,
and stuff like that. She was basically like haunted by the spirits of pornography and stuff that's attached to it. So
wow.
it definitely speaks to what we were saying about, guarding your eye gates and ear gates, because it doesn't matter what age you are. Those spirits that are on those things, that in that music, in those
Hmm.
movies, whatever, they have, if there's an open portal, it latches onto you,
Yeah.
and it can really influence how you think and operate.
Nah, that's real. That's real. Few more. Portia says, God will provide a way of escape, but you have to want to exit and not leave the door open in her Bruno Mars voice. Yo, that's real.
Yes.
So Daniel says, come on, Jay. Notebook transgression and iniquity. Yeah, there's definitely a
Hmm.
difference. Definitely.
Good stuff.
Tony says, good point. Ebony says, so many levels. Amen, Jay. Come with the word. Yeah, yo, it's real. Portia says, love the discussion. We appreciate you for sponsoring us tonight. Yo, we appreciate that, Portia. Thank you. Ebony says, David is a good example. Yes, like in the Bible.
Ooh, wee.
See,
Hmm.
that's the one thing that I think people often miss out on the Bible is that these people aren't here for us to look at and say, oh, they're perfect. Like, no, they show us these people's flaws so that we can learn from them because
Yes.
we're going to experience a lot of these same things. And the Bible is trying to equip us with what do you do? How do you navigate it when it comes knocking on your door?
I
So, yeah,
studied
that's
David
good.
so heavily in that time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
real, bro. That's real. Tiffany says, wow, teach Jay. I never understood that. Yeah, it's definitely a difference. Definitely. Ebony says, yes, humans need of God's grace daily. Yes, they do. JD says, right. Ebony says, make a plan. I think that's what she's saying. Definitely important. Tiffany says, yes, Daniel. He makes her feel good, but he has no other desired qualities. Yeah. Yeah, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Need for sex and food are two strongest appetites. That is why the struggles are difficult in these areas. That's
Come
true.
on.
Thank you, Portia. Yes, thank you so much. And this is our last one for now. Danielle says, yes, girl, food got me in its grip. Strong hold. Yo, like,
Yo,
yo, it's real. It's real.
and that's and to what I was talking about earlier, like your why, like
Mhm.
there are people who are addicted to food. There's people addicted to sex. Actually, there's a lot more people addicted to food than we realize, because like the stuff that is put into food, oftentimes fast food and stuff like that, is to literally get human beings addicted to it. Like McDonald's, with salt, sugar, salt, those are probably two of the most addictive components in food that keep us going for it. And so if you have an unhealthy relationship with food, or if you have an unhealthy relationship with sex, you're going to abuse it because you don't know the purpose of it. So if you don't know the full godly context and purpose for sex, you're going to abuse it. You're going to have premarital sex. It is what it is. And so when the church doesn't teach that
Mhm.
healthy context and show everyday examples of it, the good and the bad, give it all, show that everything, so that people can make a better decision for their lives, because we can't make somebody do what they want to do. We can't make them wait till marriage to have sex. We can't make them do anything. It's between them and God at the end of the day. But we should, as the church, give them options. Like, look, this is what happens if you go this way. This is what happens if you go this way. This is why God set up sex to be like this. Trey Songz didn't invent sex. It was God. Okay.
He definitely did not.
He did that. He in trouble himself, but that's a whole nother situation. But I think we just need to really not be afraid. Church leaders, people who serve others in church, not be afraid to have these conversations. Like, if we've all, according to the word, if we all fallen short, then why are we not having these vulnerable conversations and giving people like accounts of, you can come up from this. You can change your life. Just because you had a baby out of wedlock doesn't mean your life is over. Doesn't mean that you cannot fulfill your purpose in God. Doesn't mean you can't break any generational cycles. You just have to have the right people in your corner and get that sober reality, like, my life isn't over. I'm going to make intentional decisions from now on to
Right.
live this life like God wanted me to live.
Yeah, That's important. That's important. Portia says, I agree. Give them the knowledge to make informed decisions. Yeah, that's so important. And we got a question here. Danielle says, so boom, here's a real question. T, we get to 45, single, unmarried. Are you still waiting? Is that practical? Oh, look at Danielle she's bringing the heat out here.
Yeah,
This is gonna be a whole topic.
that is a whole.
I promise you, we're gonna have this on a future show.
I'm
But
gonna write it down.
that's directed at T. So I'm gonna step back.
Yeah, for me, yeah, I was talking to this with my friend not too long ago. I was like, if I was like 45 plus or 50 and not married, I wouldn't at that point I'd be like, look, it is what it is. I'm okay. I'm okay. If Jesus came back tomorrow and snatched everybody up in the rapture, I'd be okay. Because they're just honestly just you have to come to terms with in your relationship with God, like what you want with him is more important than anything else. Sex is temporary. The feelings that come with it are temporary. All these other worldly desires are temporary. Even the desires that God gives us cannot compare to the desire that we grow with him in our relationship with him. Ultimately, as believers, we want to be up there with Jesus and all them, and hopefully our family and friends in heaven. So to me, like that's the ultimate thing that I want out of life, even though it's afterlife. But yeah, if marriage doesn't happen for me, and I'm 45 looking at my bare hands, like it's all good. I'm still gonna live a fulfilled life, doing what God wants me to do at that time. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it.
That's real. And she had another question: is celibacy indefinitely probable and possible? So I want to throw this over to Daniel. What's your take on this?
It is definitely possible. It is possible with intentionality. Like I said, insulate yourself with accountability. If you can go out in groups, do that.
Please do.
And I guess I can answer this in reverse. And I can tell you what we could have did differently that would have stopped us having children out of turn. If we were able to find a church community and found a couples ministry that we were able to go out in groups with couples.
That's awesome.
If I was able to call my father and say, hey, Dad, I'm struggling with this. Can you make sure I'm going from her house by this time? And if I'm not answering, that's a bad sign. So it's definitely possible. It's definitely something that requires intention, but also this is the most key important, because why are you keeping something without God? You can't abstain. You can't not sin without Jesus in the equation. 2 + 2 got to equal 4. So if you're trying to do this without Jesus, without God, you're gonna fail before you start.
Right.
All right. So we got some comments in reference to that. Asia says, people ask me that question often. I always say sex or no sex. God wants to know if you are obedient to what he called you to do. That's the main focus above all else.
Right.
So then Tiffany says, yes, that is why as Christians, we do not teach and focus on the sin of gluttony. We need to honor our bodies by getting healthy. Yeah, I think that was in reference to one of those other comments. Yep. Mm-hmm. Portia says, a lot of people don't want to talk about the touchy subjects.
But I feel like those touchy subjects will keep people in the church or maybe want to come. I'm just saying. Yeah. See how lit our conversation is tonight? If people talk about it, people had a whole series or something at church, it would bring people in, at least curiosity. We're not here to judge y'all. We're just here to have a conversation. Like, what's up?
Facts. So JD says, I agree with T. Desire that relationship with God more. Ebony says, yes, T. Tiffany says, yes, but sometimes at 45 and satisfied, that is when God may send him.
I heard that too.
Ebony says, so crucial, Daniel. And then she also says, I think of 1 Corinthians 10:23. So that's good. That's good. So before we transition into our second topic of the night, just want to hand it over to you, Daniel. Any questions that you like to ask me or Tatiana, or any last closing words or takeaways that you want to share with everybody out there in the chat?
I just have a comment. Okay. As we seal this conversation, I want people, we had such an open conversation. I want people to know 3 things. 1, celibacy is possible. 2, that there is an answer for your appetite for sex. We talked about it with discipline and surrounding yourself with accountability. And 3, if you are walking through this right now, God loves you. God has never stopped loving you. He knew that you were going to do it before you did it. So it's not it may be a surprise to everybody else, but it's not a surprise to God. He's waiting for you. Um, he is wanting you to come back to him and understand that he loves you unconditionally. So that's all I have to say.
No, that's good. That's good. I appreciate that. Yo, that topic definitely, I knew we was gonna be cooking on that one for a minute. So let's before we transition into our second topic, just want to ask everybody if you're enjoying the show, definitely hit the like button. Definitely get involved in the chat if you're watching, but haven't done so yet. Also, want to give a huge shout out to Portia, today's show sponsor. Definitely, if you want to support the show and sponsor, the Cash App will be in the description, along with other ways that you can support the show as well or be a sponsor in the future. And by all means, if you're enjoying the show, invite a friend, share the link, go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you at, share the link, tell them to come in and join the conversation because we still got another topic that we're going to
Yes.
get into. So, with that being said, let's do it. So, our next topic is let's see, where is it? Right here. Signs that a man is wasting your time. So, I see some comments here. So, let me give these some shout outs right quick. Danielle says, "Yes, yes, T, it's real because there are so many single women in their 50s never married saying they are waiting on their husbands." And I'm like, "Child, let's talk let's just ask God to go on and change our taste buds." Yo, that's real. That's real. And
Mhm.
Ebony's saying that she agrees with Danielle and she says, Amen. God's love and acceptance is crucial. And the one thing that I'll say is this. I know that there are a lot of people who have a strong desire to get married. And I would say you definitely have to take that in consideration, right? I feel like for some people, being a perpetual virgin or being a celibate for the rest of their life, that's not going to be the reality for everyone. Like, and I feel like I always have to be this objective voice because that's not going to be everybody's journey. And if a person recognizes that that's not their journey, I don't think that we should judge that person. Like the same way that we give grace to people who, hey, like they had sex, they had children. Like, yo, grace is grace. So this is what I'll say. I feel like the person should do all they can do, like we mentioned today, to abstain, to do things the right way. But if they get to a crossroad and it's like getting married versus never getting married, and you have a strong desire to get married, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna be real. You have to really ask yourself, what are you going to do? What works best for your journey? Because you can listen to people say, yo, girl, 45, 50, and, never gave it up, never did any of that. I'm doing it just for God. That's wonderful. But guess what? That's not how some people are built. And that's not even what some people's desires are. Is it good to have that desire where you want to do everything that you can to stay in alignment with God? Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about, where you always want to be aiming to meet the mark. But I think we also have to keep in mind that we live a spiritual life and we also live a natural life. And a person knows better than anybody what their purpose is, what God's called them to do. And for some people, marriage is a part of that journey. And if marriage is a part of that journey for you, I think you have to really weigh the cost. I'm not saying that it's not going to cost you something. I'm not saying that there's not going to be consequences to your actions regarding the decision that you make. But like we've talked about on previous shows, you have to weigh the cost of your decision. Are you willing to pay that cost? Some people are not. But at the end of the day, I think that we all have to be mature, both spiritually and naturally, to say, hey, you know what? What is it that my relationship, how is my relationship with God set up?
Mhm.
How is my natural life set up and what I'm called to do? And where does marriage, relationships, and another person fit into this equation? And you have to figure out how that works for your personal journey. Because let's be honest, Daniel, and definitely let me know if I'm wrong. I'm sure before you were a father, you didn't set out to have that as the way your story was going to plan out, right? And that
Absolutely.
kind of goes back to what I was saying is that a person starts at A, but man, life will take us to a B that we never expected. That we never expected. Now, this is what let me ask this question because I think this will really tie into what I'm saying. Did you have the desire to one day be a father?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's my point. If people have the desire to be a mother, be a father, be a wife, be a husband, sometimes getting to that end goal may not look the way you want it to look. I'm not advocating for you to do things in a way that is against what the Bible says. But what I'm saying is sometimes your life is not going to look the way of a straight line. Like it's just not. I know my life has veered off course many times. And for people whose life has never veered off course, then clearly I'm not talking to them. But I think we have to always remind ourselves of the fact that we are human beings. There is a goal that we're setting to hit. There's a target. But let me be clear. God has never required perfection from any of us. He's never required perfection from any of us. It goes back to our heart. What is our true desire? What is our true relationship with him like? The same way it's unrealistic for the church or other people to put the expectation of perfection on us, I think that we also are doing ourselves a disservice when we try to place that same expectation on ourselves. So I want people to be willing to give themselves the grace to not just make wise decisions, the right decisions, but also be willing to acknowledge that sometimes you may not make the decision that you thought you were going to make today.
Yeah.
I've been there where I was like, yo, I ain't gonna never do that. Like, that ain't gonna never be my story. I ain't gonna never.
That was me.
And it happened. When you can mentally prepare yourself for that, guess what? You're able to pull yourself back up. You don't just go, oh, well, that's the iniquity and the transgression thing. We all are going to, at some point, if we, and I think most people already have, veered off course when it comes to the biblical standard in some degree. I think both of y'all have said it multiple times tonight that, people sin, people do these things. So all I'm saying is be willing to think this through. Be willing to think this through. Like, you have to think it through and understand that life always doesn't work the way that you expect it to. Yeah. And if you hold yourself to this one way of doing things, this one way of your life working out, it could be handcuffing you in a way where you're unable to truly experience things that the way you want to. Because what happens when, let's say, for example, a woman meets a great guy and this guy wants to have sex with her, but she's like, nah, like, I don't do that. I'm celibate. I'm not telling her to have sex with him. But many women who are in the waiting stage will be like, nah, I got to kick that dude to the curb because he keeps trying to have sex with me. What, like we talked about today, his desire to have sex with you speaks to his attraction level to you. Now, let me be very clear, get in the camera like Tatiana does from time to time, and let y'all know that every dude that's attracted to you and wants to have sex with you isn't because he wants to make you his wife, right? You do need discernment to be able to discern that, hey, this is a man that has godly character. This is a godly man. This is a man of character, but this is also a natural man who understands that, hey, he's sexually attracted to you. Are you going to throw him out because, oh, he want to have sex with me and I'm waiting? That is why I say you have to be in a position to think it through. Will you just say, bye, you got to go?
Mm-hmm.
All because of that. I'm not telling you to have sex with him, but you guys will work through that together as opposed to just coming to the decision of he got to go, kick him out. I'm walking this road alone. So I just wanted to share that. I know I said a lot. Let's see what the comments saying. They may be throwing it at me. So Danielle says, that's good, Jay. Appreciate that. Portia says, I agree, Jay. The spiritual and the natural, that's real. Tiffany says, Daniel, if a man failed to marry a woman he loves, when she gets pregnant, should question why his hold on.
Should we?
She had a correction on there. Should she?
Oh, okay. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Should she question his level of love for her if he didn't cover her during the situation? Do you kind of understand the question?
I understand the question.
Okay.
The question is, it's a case by case basis. Every man is different. Every man is also comprised of their parental experiences with their parents. I was blessed enough to have a father who was present in my life, but not everybody has that. So with that being said, his covering may be his own. It may be clicking on his own trauma, his own everything. I mean, with everything, I mean, I'm gonna just be real. When you have children out of wedlock, as a father, not being the one that's caring for the child, having that motherly nature, you have an opportunity to run. It's just, I'm being blunt honest. You have the opportunity to run. So the key to that is, one, your love for your children. And then two, it has everything to do with I do say that your love for that woman does play a role in it, but I know people that didn't necessarily love the woman, but they love their child. But I'm saying that every man has the opportunity to run if he could. But the I think the most important thing is to lean in to whatever you're feeling and address it with that woman. Because I mean, God designed the man to cover, whether you're not with that woman or not. Um, you're covering during her pregnancy. She's very vulnerable. You're covering even after the pregnancy. If she's breastfeeding, if she's vulnerable because she just had a human being. In my case, two human beings coming out. You need to change the diaper. You need to do all these things. So I've. It's hard for me. I understand, but it's hard for me to relate to somebody who did look at that and run.
Yeah, that's real. That's a great question too, Tiffany. Appreciate you for sharing it. Danielle says, "Come on, Jay. Never require perfection, just to press forward towards the mark. That's the word, sir. Yeah, definitely." Asia says, "Daniel is the prime example of when God has called you, He's called you, and even if things don't go as planned, God will bring you back on plan. Period.
I
That's
appreciate
facts.
that.
That's facts, Daniel.
Amen.
And that's why we wanted to have you on here, man, because this needs to be discussed, right?
Mhm.
I'm all about discussing these, hot topics that we were saying before. Don't get brought up in church. We need to have these conversations. Yep. Says she loves the transparency. We're loving it as well, for sure. Tiffany says, because marriage is a coverage, I have friends that question the man marrying them when the child is 2 years old. Oh, man. Yeah. So people kind of having that regret to a certain extent. Ebony says, God's plan for children is never a mistake. Never.
Right.
Never. Danielle says, you can't be trying to get it every 5 seconds. Yeah, I know what this is going back to. Every 5 seconds, like a teenage boy, after we had discussions about staying on the straight and narrow, it's hard enough to keep myself in check without having to check you too. That's real. And I am wholeheartedly in agreement with everything that we talked about earlier, which is the fact that both people need to exercise self control. But
Right.
I have to be honest with the ladies here. If I am with a woman and I am sexually attracted to her, I want to have sex with her. I want to, like, I'm not going to lie about this. I'm
There's a
not going
way
to
to
lie
go
about this.
about
That
it
doesn't
though,
mean I
Jay.
will, but I want to. That doesn't mean I'm going to hound her for sex. But what I'm saying
Right.
is the desire is there.
Can
Yeah,
I
there's
say
some
something? Go ahead,
oh
Tatiana. Go first.
I feel like Jay, like some people, some guys act too much on it though. Like they bring it up too early in conversations in the talking phase, for example, or they a little too pushy with the physical touch, and that kind of is like that comes off as a red flag to women when they're dating. Like we get it, like guys want sex, we get it. But like what happens if they're a little too much? Like, sir, like what's up? I think like you said, it's that discernment and making sure that both people are doing what they're supposed to do mature wise and hold it down, sir. Can you I mean what's
Like
up?
Danielle says, you can want it, Jay, but sit on your hands. And then
Thank
she
you.
goes on to say, that's
Exactly.
it. See, yeah, that is true. I agree with you, what you're saying. Yeah, Daniel, you said you had something you want to share.
This is segueing into the other conversation, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Okay.
Um, the key to Christian dating is discernment. Is
Hmm.
Right.
are you looking at him and are you sensing? Because women have the greatest intuition ever, so it's a matter of you ignore it or not. Do you sense that this is a weak moment or weak moments because he is in his flesh?
Good
That's
question.
the real question you need to answer. Everybody has those moments. But if it turns into moments and it happens every time y'all together,
That's a
then you
habit.
need to run.
Yeah.
'Cause he's not what he's portraying himself to be.
No, that's real. And
Tell the
Ebony
truth.
says, oh, no, go ahead, Daniel. I apologize.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, I mean, it goes back to one of the fruits of the spirit. If he in his word, I mean the result of being in your word is the fruits of the spirit, and one of them is self-control. Like we said, everybody has a weak
Hmm.
moment, but do you have weak moments?
Yeah, that's
Yep.
deep.
Yep. And Ebony says men can have self control too in action. And I agree.
Hello?
And we got somebody in the building. V Sanchez, what's up? Thank you for joining us. Definitely
Hey.
hope you are enjoying the discussion as well. Now, y'all know me. I say stuff and I get in my bag. And I feel like I always have to clarify because going back to the example that Tatiana made, you were mentioning a guy that is being touchy-feely, being really active during a talking stage. I have to be very clear. I was referencing a man that a woman is in a relationship with. That means that you should have already been able to discern whether or not this is a man of character, whether he a godly man, he meet all of those standards.
That's also
I'm
true.
speaking to the fact that you are with this man. Y'all are committed to each other in a relationship. For you to think that the feelings and the sexual attraction to you is not going to be a challenge for him, as it should be for you as well. If it's not, this is the thing that I got to say, because a lot of the focus always comes on men wanting sex. Like, if the woman does not want to have sex with me too, that is a problem. Like, I'm just saying, that is a problem. If the woman is not fighting to not have sex with you, bro, she's not really attracted to you. I'm going to say it. If the woman you're in a relationship with is not struggling to not have sex with you, she does not really want to be with you. I know some people are probably not going to agree with that, but it's real. It's real. We are human beings. If the woman you with, like, nah, man, like, you don't do it for me. Like, stop. I'm good. Waiting isn't a problem. Like, she ain't into you, bro. She's not into you. She's not.
Ooh-wee.
She is not. I'll get in the camera. She's not into you.
And don't try to churchify and be patriarchal and saying like, oh, women can't get sexual pleasure or be turned on. Yes, we can. Get to know women, understand our anatomy and how things work, because unfortunately the church has taught that too, that that only men are to get certain pleasures from sex and sexual attraction, and women are just supposed to just sit there and take it.
That's right.
It's not the case.
That's right. And I'm gonna be real. Like I told you, I'm not perfect. I had moments where I had to discover that I was fake celibate. And you know who I discovered I was fake celibate with? Other women who were celibate who wanted to have sex with me as bad as I wanted to have sex with them. Because we were both attracted to each other. So, like, I have to say this because people get this whole celibacy thing misconstrued. It's a challenge on both ends. If it's not, you have to call in question whether or not that person is really with you or they're just tolerating you. Like, if a woman is just with you because you don't do it for her, like, she's able to remain celibate and wait even longer, like, bro, that's a problem. And when you get in that marriage, then she gonna be in that marriage with a dude that she don't even want to have sex with.
Hello?
Like, we do realize that at some point, the people that are waiting want to have sex. If you ignore the sex before the marriage, not meaning having it, but ignoring what that feeling is like, how this impacts you, your attraction to the person you with, what do you think is going to happen once you get married? If you continue to suppress your sexual desires while you're single, before you're married, what do you think is going to happen when you get married? You think you just gonna come come to the honeymoon, flip a switch, and now your sex drive is gonna go all the way back to 100? No, it's not.
This gonna trigger the purity culture people.
I don't care. Let them be triggered. Let them be triggered. This needs to be said. If you do not consider that your sex life is going to be a reality for you after you get married, you're not thinking it through. Like I was saying before, you have to think it through. Most people are only considered in the moment. They just thinking about now. If you only register as an unmarried person and you never take into consideration what your life is going to be like after you get married, you're doing a disservice to yourself. What good is waiting and then you get in a marriage with somebody that you don't even find sexually attractive? Was that worth the wait? No, it wasn't. Not for me. Not for me. It's not worth the wait. You waited for what?
What was your prize? That, well, I wouldn't call it a prize.
Oh, did she just call it the prize? Yo, that wasn't me. That wasn't me that said that.
I did not. I don't want to prizify
let me
that.
see if they beat me up in the chat, because I know whenever I get in my bag, y'all be beating me up. So let's see. Oh, hold on. Let's go. We got a lot of comments. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Ebony says wolf or sheep. Hello? Yeah, you gotta be able to discern. Cynthia says facts. Danielle says, okay, let me bring something up. It's easier for me to not want to have sex with a man if I've been out of practice for a minute.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. JD says, that's real, Jay. Okay. Danielle says, that doesn't mean I don't want him. It just means it's in hibernation. Well, this is the one thing. At some point, the bear got to wake up. At some point, winter got to be over,
And
and and I promise you, I promise you, like you don't want to wait until you don't want to wake the bear like after you get married, and then you be like, oh hold on, like this bear not even hungry for this dude.
I do want to ask real quick the
Yeah,
ladies who are married in the chat, have you experienced more desire to have sex with your fiance at the time?
good question.
Because I heard that as well. Like, it's one thing to be tempted to have sex while you're just dating and in a relationship, but when you get engaged closer to the marriage day, like, is it more intensified? Have you ever like seen that or experienced that for the married ladies?
Nah, that's real. That's real. V Sanchez says, I agree. Tanisha says, that's true, Jay. Ebony says, we live in a world that has more and more relationships and less love, more and more sex, less and less intimacy. Michael Todd. Yeah, I mean, we do. That's the culture. That's
It's
the
so
culture. But
sad.
this is the thing. This is the thing that I got to point out. We focus too much on what the world is doing and we ignore the impact of us as individuals. Like you can get so focused on the world is more and more this and less that. What are you though?
Ooh,
Are
come on,
are
Jay.
you developing yourself for love? Are you developing yourself for intimacy? It's one
That's
thing to
good.
call it out. Are you addressing it and developing it within yourself? Or are you just pointing the finger at what other people are doing? And this isn't directed at Ebony. I'm just speaking generally. Like it's easy to call
Yeah.
out, we can call out the issues all day in the world. Are you working on those same things as a human being that you deal with personally? That's what we got to do. Look in the mirror and get ourselves together. So yeah, T, they're giving you some love. Thank you, T, from JD.
Thank you guys.
That's so true, T, from Tiffany. Danielle says, because if you aren't a virgin, you can learn to put your excitement in check to avoid disappointment. Don't put the cart before the horse because I'm telling you, imagination. Yeah, that's real.
Mm.
So Ebony says, facts, Danielle. Danielle goes on to say the sex drive will go back to 100 if the performance matches her. See, her imagination, though. Like this is
That sounds
people
like
don't talk
setting
about
up
this.
an
People don't talk about
expectation.
this because look, didn't Daniel just say one of the guardrails is the mind? And look at this. The woman is living in her imagination. Think about this. Think about this for a second. You're depending on your imagination to bring you to 100 and not the man that's standing right in front of you in the physical, in the reality. This
Let
is
me say
another
this.
thing. Like, yo, we got to address what's right in front of us. You can't live in your mind. No, you got something you want to say, Daniel?
I think we in this conversation we kind of look at God as hands off. Like when it comes to sex, it's a desire that we have, but I truly believe that there is a reward for waiting. And I believe that um, God is wanting to be a part of that process as well.
Right.
And it
Yes.
intensifies the feeling, it intensifies whatever pleasure you may feel. I believe that God is in that process, and that's why in when it refers to marriage and even sex in Proverbs, it's a three-braided cord. It's not just you and that person, it's also God intertwined in that. So with that being said, I personally would not be worried about uh, anybody's loins being dormant, because I believe that at the right time, even if you know you feel like you've been dead in that way, I think that God has a way of being a part of that process that could intensify it more than you ever could by revving up your engine per se.
Mm-hmm.
No, I respect that. I respect that. And this is what I was saying before is like it's an individual journey. Like
Yeah.
me and Daniel, that's where we cross paths. Like that's where we go in two different ways because for me, a woman being sexually attracted to me is important
Mhm.
because let's be honest, man. Like let's be honest for a second. If you depend on God waking us up, what if that doesn't happen? Like that we have to think it through. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Right, but what if that doesn't happen? It's good to know that this woman already has a physical desire and attraction to you. Like, yes, I agree that God can definitely intensify it, but I feel like we are spiritualizing it when we depend on God to be the reason for that sex drive. Like we're talking about something that's natural.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're talking about,
I
Jay.
see what
I
you're
get it.
saying, but that also sounds as if that sexual attraction to you sounds like it's another way of you feeling wanted or desired, which is
Who doesn't want to be wanted or desired by the
exactly,
person they're with,
yeah. And
right?
that's why you said it goes in two different ways, because everybody wants to be accepted. So that confirmation is, what you're ultimately saying is that sexual attraction to you is confirmation that that person desires and wants you. And when you don't feel that, it's like ghost town.
Yeah,
Am I catching that right?
and this is the point that I want to make. I think
Ooh-wee.
that it can easily be misconstrued that I'm prioritizing this like it's the most important thing. That's not what I'm doing. So the first thing I got to paint this picture because people will misconstrue what I'm saying. I'm not saying sex is the ultimate. It's the most important thing from a woman. No, I'm just isolating this one aspect of relationships and of marriage. And I think it's something that isn't often talked about. And that's the reason why I want to voice this because a lot of times people ignore the importance of these physical desires, especially when we are more spiritually inclined. And we try to bring a divide between our spiritual and our physical. Like, we have to figure out synergy. Like, think about this synergy. Like, are you familiar with the concept of synergy? It's when you take two things that alone, they are operating on their own independently. But when you bring them together, they combine to enhance the experience. Or in business, it makes things run more smoothly, makes things more efficient. I think that that applies in our lives, in our relationship with God, as well as in our relationships with other people and in romantic relationships. When you take a person who is understanding and aware of their natural desires, and they also are a spiritually inclined person, when you put the two of those things together, they come together to create something that is absolutely remarkable, something that I would say the world does not get to experience. That's one of the benefits of being right, like a Christian or a spiritually minded person, right? Is because you don't just have the carnal experience, right? You have the carnal plus the spiritual experience. But I think what oftentimes happens is people focus on just one or the other. No, the objective should be how do we find synergy between the two? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
To your point, Jay, I don't know if this is related or not, but like when I brought up the purity culture comment, I was saying that there are cases in which women who have been part of the purity culture and basically spiritualized sex before marriage to the point of them marrying and then they're not getting anything from the sexual experience that they have in marriage. Um, being that is not what they expected it to be, or they cannot perform their wifely duties because of the indoctrination that they received. I don't know if that's related, but it came to mind when you were talking about that.
No, that's real. That's real. So let me highlight some comments. Tiffany says it intensifies when you have waited, but the fire was blazing during the engagement, and we struggled to keep from slipping. So I
Thank
think
you
you
for
had asked for
sharing.
married women to speak
Mhm.
on it.
Thank you for
Um,
sharing, Tiffany.
so yeah, let me give all of these shout outs to my man Daniel because you're getting mad love in the chat.
Yes.
JD says, Daniel, I'm with you on that. God wants you to be all in the details of life. That's real.
Yes.
Ebony says, bring the word, Daniel, for sure, for sure. Let's see. I think was it another one? Okay. Oh, thank you, T from Danielle, giving y'all shout outs. And let's see, what's the heat they about to bring to me? Because I know it's coming. Danielle says, Jay, but it's almost like yeah, I knew this was coming. It's
Oh.
almost like you're saying that sexual attraction is the key to a great sexual performance and that the two are mutually exclusive. No,
Hmm.
like that goes back to the point that I was making about the synergy thing. Like you need both. Like who wants to have a sexual relationship with a person that you're not sexually attracted to? And by no means does a person's sexual level of attraction mean that you're going to have great sexual performance, but it does increase the possibility that that will be the chance. I'm not saying that they're mutually exclusive though, not at all. So Ebony says we're doomed.
Oh God.
No, but like I said,
But
we
God.
all walk our own path in life by all means. Like I'm not telling people to do what I do or think what I think. I just always think that it's important to view things from multiple angles. And that's all I'm trying to do is provide a different perspective. So Tiffany says, God will resurrect that passion at the right moment, or is that an impractical viewpoint? That is a question that I think people need to ask themselves, and that was partially the point that I was trying to make. So let's see.
Hmm.
Somebody says Song of Solomon. Danielle says, but does passion fix a poor performance? That's my question. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Mm-mm.
That's not what I was saying at all.
Gotta
Tiffany said,
communicate.
I know a woman that waited, and when her husband couldn't perform on the honeymoon night, her pastor had counseled her to not annul the marriage.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
What, the annulment or what?
About, yeah, that situation where it's like, I don't know, either you have this expectation for sex, or in this case the man was not able to perform, so it's like she's like, oh my gosh, what did this sign up for? You know, in terms of waiting.
Can I comment on that real quick?
Of
Mhm.
course, bro.
So I look at it actually flip flop.
Okay.
I would much rather have passion than performance, and the reason I say that is because you can teach performance, but you can't teach passion.
Come on.
And a lot of marriages are ruined where they have so much chemistry, but either person couldn't perform, whereas that is so trivial compared to the what marriage truly is. Like, I mean, obviously, when you learn somebody else's body, you can do all that stuff when it's time, and that's great. And I do believe that that's important for that your spouse. But I think we sometimes idolize it so much that we make that the pinnacle of marriage is to have this earth-shattering sex. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, bro. Yeah.
And I'm just like, that is important, but at the same time, I don't think when God looked at marriage and it said it's not okay for men to be alone, that was the case. And like I said before, it's important. God wants that for you. He wants you to stay married. So I mean, it's the important part. But I think passion can be taught. Is my point.
You feel like passion can be taught or performance?
Passion can't be taught. Like,
Oh, okay. You
performance
say
can
it
be
can't be.
taught.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
performance can be
yeah.
taught. Passion can be taught.
Right. I agree. That's the only reason why, like, okay, I just didn't hear you. I didn't hear that on
Yeah,
that can't.
yeah,
Nah, you're
yeah.
good. And I just want to be clear, like mainly what I was focusing on was the sexual attraction, which now is being translated as the word passion. That's more so what I was saying, is that having that passion is something that you will want. I wasn't really speaking to the performance. I was speaking to the fact that it's a possibility that if a person doesn't ever consider sexual attraction or consider sex while they're unmarried, that when they get married, things don't turn out to be that great because they never thought about, like, oh, what role does that actually play in a marriage, right? That was the only point that I was making, is that if you don't take the time to consider sex, like you can't just lock it in a treasure chase and then you want to open it up once you get married. No, I'm just saying we have to have these conversations. I'm not advocating for people to have sex outside of marriage. I'm not advocating for people to be led by their sexual desires. I feel like I have to say this because I think it's easy for people to take the things that I've said and misconstrue it. What I'm saying is you have to acknowledge these things and you have to address them. More importantly, with the person that you're in a relationship with, evaluating how sexually attracted or how passionate that person is for you is important. It's important. At the very least, will you agree with this? Is a person's level of sexual attraction or their passion for a person prior to marriage, is that a cursory sign to what they can expect once they get married to a certain extent?
I honestly wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to put
I
any
can-
expectations on it. Honestly, I feel
I'm
like
not, look, no expectations. Let me clarify again. Couldn't be a marker, a sign, something that you can look at and be like, oh, well, he or she is really feeling me and attracted to me now. I can make an assumption that it's likely to be that way once we get married. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, I think it's
Is
a
that a
hope.
fair assessment?
It's a hope that one would have. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody wants you. You don't want to be like, I'm struggling, and she over there like, I'm good. I get what you're saying, because I mean, at that point, it's like, why are you good? You not feeling me? I get what you're saying.
Okay, that's cool. I appreciate you guys. I love y'all. Okay, we got the chat. I'm gonna go through the chat. I'll be honest, man. We're probably not gonna get to the second topic tonight. We'll say that for another show.
Yeah.
But let's finish up with these great things in the chat. So let's see. Where did I leave off? Thank you, T. Got that one. Ebony said that's tragic. Not sure what that's. Oh, maybe the annulment piece. Danielle says, that's what I mean, Tiffany. Yep. Portia says, Danielle, good question. Poor performance may have to do with other factors, eating habits, etc. I think the person who had the bad performance would have to work on improving while the partner gives them grace, focus on the intimacy of the passion, and is not there and learn each other's body, etc. Yeah, that goes back to what you were saying, Danielle.
Yeah.
And I agree with you completely. Ebony says, there was a study on men recently showing men's performance is declining because of, do y'all know that?
Angela
Angela?
and
Huh?
pornography.
Oh,
Angela.
she must have. Oh, she probably tried to put that in. Oh, I got you. I got you.
Okay, okay.
She doing that so the algorithm doesn't.
Thank
Oh,
you, because we
okay.
don't want to get
I'm
blocked.
looking like, what is that?
She
Like,
tried to keep us from getting demonetized.
like,
We
what
appreciate
you talking
it.
about? Portia says intimacy of passion is not there and learn each other's body. Okay, yeah, that was a part of the other comment. Danielle says that is helpful, Portia. I'm concerned because I'm 37 and the women I know who are married are really struggling because the men are impotent and it's hard because they waited. Yeah.
By God.
Danielle
I
says so.
recently heard that was tied to pornography watching. I don't know if there's a correlation for those men, but I heard that was part of it.
Yeah, it definitely has a role. Definitely does. Danielle says, so I appreciate your solutions. JD says, yes, Jay. Portia says, you're welcome. Marriage is not easy. And sometimes, no matter how much chemistry you have, the intimacy has to be worked on daily, catering to each other's love language and doing things together.
Amen.
Okay. Oh, Ebony was saying I didn't need to read the comment. I think it's too late. I just saw this one. My bad. Portia says a marriage shouldn't be thrown away on performance alone. It's something to discuss with your partner so that the marriage bed is enjoyable for both people. You have to fight for your relationship. That's
Amen.
real. So Danielle says, we love you, Jay. We got you, boo. Y'all appreciate that. Ebony says, great points and clarification, Jay. Yeah, I knew I had to clarify myself. I knew I had to do that. Portia says, put in the work, make initial deposits in the love bank, and you'll be able to make a withdrawal when the time is right.
Tell
Yes,
that.
yes.
Tell
And what's
true.
up, Ebony? Joining us on the stream tonight. We're
Ebony.
glad to see you join us. She says, when you talk about sexual attraction, what about different cultures and arranged marriages? There may not be sexual chemistry present, but many arranged couples have had to learn each other. Yeah, like that's a whole nother dynamic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely a reality. But when we look at things over here in the Western society, I think for the most part, that's not necessarily occurring. But I think that it definitely is a reality for a lot of people. But nah, man, yo, tonight was on fire. Before we wrap up, man, I just want to toss it over to my man Daniel. What did you think about being on the show? What's your takeaways? Any last or closing words you want to leave with us, or any questions for me or Tatiana?
No, I appreciate everybody from the comments to Jay and Tatiana. I appreciate both of you all. I would love to come back to talk about the topic we didn't get to and many other topics. I look forward to being back, and thank you all for your hospitality.
Always a pleasure, man.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure. Tatiana, any questions for Daniel, myself, or any last or closing words before we wrap up tonight?
Just thank you, Daniel, for joining us today and being so transparent and sharing your story. I'm sure it will reach many who need to hear it. And I pray that God continues to be with you in your own personal journey as a father, as a son, as a PK, all the things that God intended you to be. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Jay, for your insight and wisdom. I did want to add one more thing before we end, that marriage is so sacred and important to God, even in 2021, y'all, just because, child, my eyes are lighting up. Oh my gosh. Before the show even came on, I saw news about Devon and Megan Good divorcing, and they seem to be one of those couples that you see in the Christian kingdom. They have a whole book about waiting before marriage. We're gonna have to talk about this next week, Jay. Okay. But it just makes my heart a little heavy. But I just want to say that marriage is so important to God. Sex is important to God, because he knows what happens when people have sex. We create life. That's what he set out to do. That's one of the purposes of it. So the enemy sees that, knows that, and studies it. He studies us. He knows our habits. He knows what man is capable of doing. It's in the Bible, y'all. Ain't nothing new under the sun. What we are seeing now, we've been seeing it for quite some time. So just be aware that the enemy is after you in your singleness, in your dating season, in your marriage. all the time. You had to be prayed up and just be prepared that challenges are going to come when it comes to sex, your attraction to your partner, even wanting to be with them. You have to remember what the word says about coming together and married couples coming together unless you agree to be separate. And even then, let that be for a temporary time because the enemy knows what's going to tempt you. So, again, let's take marriage seriously, even when we see the world and other things in the news happening. Let's take it seriously. Let's take um, our sexual desires seriously and submit them to God. And that sounds spiritual, that sounds hard, but He created all of that. We owe it to Him to surrender all parts of our life to Him, including that. So I'll just leave it at that.
No,
You
that's
guys were
good.
great tonight in the comments as well.
Yes, yes. And I just want to point out a few comments that we had come through while you guys were sharing. So Tiffany was saying that was a good point to Ebony. They are thanking you, Daniel. Like so many thank you, Daniels from Danielle, from Tiffany, from Portia. You know, we really appreciate you, Daniel, coming on, being transparent, diving into this topic with us. We really appreciate it. JD left a comment saying her grandparents had an arranged marriage, 8 kids and 50 plus years. Wow,
Ooh,
so that's good. That's good right
glory.
there. Yeah. Portia was saying that she saw the news about Devon and Megan, and it was sad. Be keeping them in prayers. Danielle was saying it was sad. Tiffany said the same thing. And last but not least, my girl JD thanking us for tonight's show. And
Thank you,
thank y'all, chat. Like
JD.
y'all definitely kept it active. I promise y'all. The only reason
Yes.
we're able to not get into multiple topics, and this is the funny thing, like just saying this, I was like, I know we're not gonna be able to do 3 topics after what happened
Yep.
last week.
Yep.
And like I feel like at some point this is gonna end up being a one-topic show because one, our guests like Daniel, y'all just bring so much heat. And then the chat is always bringing so much heat where y'all just give us so much good stuff to go on. I promise y'all, I had questions that I didn't even ask Daniel tonight. And it was all good even without getting those questions out. So I'm grateful to everybody. Thank you guys and look forward to you joining us next Tuesday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, y'all, stay blessed.